Hi there, this is an all-inclusive video where you will learn Python from scratch. So make sure you have an hour to dedicate to this video. My name is Ardit Sulce and I'm a Python instructor on Udemy. I'm author of one of the top Python courses on the web today, the Python Mega Course, built 10 real-world applications. The course is hosted on Udemy and currently it has 70,000 students. I'm also the founder and I maintain the Python blog pythonhow.com, a blog about Python, and I have used Python in many areas, including even studying earthquakes, where lots of data processing is involved and so on. You have to use Python for that too, and many other applications. Alright, so let's dive in. You don't need to install anything in this tutorial. Whether you have Python installed or not in your computer, it doesn't matter because you're going to use an awesome online service that gives you free access to a Linux computer. You're going to access that computer through its terminal, so you're going to give commands, Unix, Linux commands, to the computer to write code and execute programs and create folders and create files, etc. And the terminal will be displayed in your browser. So all you need is an internet browser, which I assume you already have. And so that allows us to focus on going straight ahead to writing and running Python code instead of dealing with installation issues that can easily distract you from learning Python. Later on, if you want, you can install Python in your computer, and that's an easy process as well. But believe me, having the possibility to write and run Python code from the browser, it will really help you learn Python. Moreover, later in real life, you're most likely going to host your Python programs on Linux servers, not on Windows, not on Mac, because Linux works best with Python, and generally with hosting applications. So here is how to have access to your own Linux server, or computer if you like, and be able to run Python. Go to pythonanywhere.com. That's the service you're going to use. And this is how the website looks currently. You want to go to pricing and sign up. So you have to sign up for an account here. And go to create a beginner account, which is free. Create a username for yourself, email, password, and click register. I agree to the terms and conditions. Register. And that's all. In a few seconds you have access to a Python environment. Let's look at the tour quickly, or I can make my own tour to you. So I talked about using the terminal to access your Linux computer. Actually, let me be clear about something. You're not going to have an entire Linux computer where you have access to everything, like to install software. Let's say you cannot install Photoshop in this computer because they give you a certain environment with limited memory and so on. For example, with a free plan, I think you have around 500 megabytes. Yep, here is the quota of files. If you want to pay later, you can pay. Anyway, we're going to use the free plan, which is very good. And yeah, you don't have a physical computer, but you can use Python just like you do in a normal computer. You can create files and folders, and you can install Python libraries as well. And so the terminal, how to open the terminal? You can open the terminal by going to the bash button. And then to start Python, all you have to do is type Python 3.5. And that will open Python 3.5. You can also check if there is Python 3.6. First exit the session. Exit. Python 3.6. I think they will implement this in the near future. Yeah, there is Python 3.6. Great. We're going to use Python 3.6 then. I think they have just added this in the last days. Anyway, the difference between Python 3.5 and Python 3.6 is not very big. So anyway, now we have an interactive Python session. So let's start writing our first code here. Print hello. So what that will do is it will print the string hello, the text hello. So this is your first Python program. However, this is an interactive shell, which means if I exit this now, I go to the terminal again. So this is the terminal, and this here was the interactive Python session, or shell if you like. And now I've lost this code. I mean, I didn't save it in a file, so I lost this program. If you want to save a program in a file, which you normally want to do with real programs, so the Python interactive shell is just for testing things, for testing your code, how it works, and while you build your program, you want to test short lines of code, short pieces of code, and so on. Now, you want to insert this in a Python program or in a Python file. In other words, a Python file contains the Python code, which, in other words, you can say contains the Python program that does something. I'm going to use an editor here, which is called Nano, and then you give the name of the file. Let's say program1, pro1.py. Give it the extension .py. So .py is the extension for Python files. And that will open the Nano editor where you can write Python code. So what you do here is go ahead and use a print function, which is a Python keyword. Print is a Python keyword, and then hello. Then, in order to save and exit the editor, the Nano editor, you need to press Ctrl X. You can see here it stands for exit, Ctrl X. And Nano will ask you save modified buffer. So if you want to save it, you should press Y and then enter here. And that will save pro1.py, the file, in your local folder. Now, how to execute this program? Well, you should write Python 3.6 and then the name of the program, pro1.py. And here you get the output printed out on your terminal. So that's it, you just wrote a Python program. Now, without going any deeper into Python, let me tell a few things about this terminal thing. Maybe it looks a bit scary, so let me explain it. I'm going to explain a few very important Linux commands so that you can interact with the Linux computer. So now, for example, where are we here? Well, to know that, you can type in pwd. So this is a Unix command. Pwd will tell you where you are. So this is the current directory, the working directory. I'm in this folder now, just like you are in a directory on your graphical interface on Windows or Mac. Here we are not in a graphical interface, but we are currently in that folder, just like you are currently in that folder. So everything you do here, it works for this particular folder. Now, if you do ls, that will list all the files that are in the current directory and folders as well. We don't have any folders here, we just have readme.txt, which is a default file, and we also have pro1.py, the file that we created with Nano up here. Good. Now, it's good to have a good, meaningful directory structure. What I mean is you can create some folders to have your Python files. To create a folder, you can do mkdir and the name of the folder that you want to create. Python or Py project. You know, don't use spaces. Use underscore if you want to divide the words, because using spaces in the names of your files and folders may cause problems. So just use underscores and ls, and you'll see that Py project has been created. Now, how can you change the directory from the current directory, which is this one in here? How can you go to Py project? You can do that using the cd command, which stands for change directory, and then type py, and then you can use the tab for auto completion, and that will go to py project, or you can type it down, the complete word, but you know, this is shorter. And now you can see that you are in this folder. That's your current directory. To go back, you need to do cd and 2 dots, and you go back here again. And to move a file from pro1.py to another folder like py project, you do mv, which means for move. And yeah, you see now that pro1.py is not in this directory anymore. It should be in here, ls, yeah, here it is, pro1.py. So I'm going to work on this directory from now on. And consider that the first lesson, so setting up Python on Python Anywhere, and also creating our first program, which was print something. And now let's talk about variables. What is a variable? Well, let's look at our program again. You can use the up or down arrow keys to scroll between your last executed commands. Like if I want to find my last command, nano pro1.py, or you can type it down if the command was very far away. Let's say it was typed in earlier. And anyway, nano pro1.py will open the program again. Print hello. So variables, what are variables in Python? Variable is any name that you create that is not a Python keyword. Let's say name is not a Python keyword, print is a Python keyword, and you don't want to use the print name for a variable. So the name is the name of my variable. And variables can start with a letter or an underscore, but they should not start with a number, because numbers, they also are considered as keywords. So you don't want to use a number for naming, for starting a variable name. But you can use a variable, a number, sorry, like here. That would be a valid variable name. And then you assign a value to that variable. And then, if you assign a variable, value to that variable, so that variable now is like a container. It contains that value currently. And here, what you can do is you want to print out name1 variable. Ctrl X, Y, and enter to execute Python 3.6 pro1.py. Oh, sorry, I mistyped Python 3.6. So, guess what output are we going to get? For a while, well, we're going to get hello, because now you can go with the upper arrow key to open nano again. So the variable was holding this value, therefore the value of the variable is printed out. However, if you update the variable with another name, like that, Ctrl X, Y, and enter. My browser got crazy at the moment. Anyway, it's not a problem, it's just a display issue. Python 3.6. So this time we got hi executed. Why? Because this is something important you should know about Python, how Python executes programs. So when Python executes a script, this is called a script, or a program if you like. So a script is executed from top to bottom. So Python first goes to execute the first line. So what it does is it assigns a hello string to name1, to that variable, and then you're using again that variable and assign a new string to that. So at this point the name1 variable will be updated with a new value, and therefore when you print out, when you use a print function which is designed to print something on the terminal, that function will print out the last value. And of course you can assign numbers to variables like 10, or even numbers with a decimal point like 10.5. And of course you can print them out. Like that, and you'll get 10. And this brings us to the other lecture, which is about data types. So this is how you create variables. Now, data types. We have different data types in Python, and actually we just use 3 of the data types in here. This is called a string data type. It is always enclosed in quotes. They can be either double quotes or single quotes. So even if you had single quotes, the script would work again. That's a string. Now we have integers. An integer is a whole number. So it's not a decimal point number with a dot in here. So you can have minus 10, minus 9, minus 1, 0, 1, 100, 1000. Those are integers. Then we have floats. Floats are numbers with a decimal point. And if you don't trust me, you can actually print out the type of name2, for instance, and also the type of name3. Make sure that you have an equal number of opening and closing round brackets or parentheses if you like. Otherwise you'll get an error. So let me try this. I'm printing out the type of 10 and the type of 10.5. And here is what you get. So this is a class int, which stands for integer, and this is a class float, which stands for floats. So for integers and floats. Now we also have more compound data types in Python, such as lists. A list is, let's say, or let's name it differently, my list 1 equals to, you have to open close brackets. And so a list is an array that contains multiple objects. Now an object is considered this one here, this is an object, this is an object. Everything in Python actually is an object. And you're going to learn later on that you also have more complex objects, such as a file, an Excel file that you load in Python. So that's also a data type, a certain type that has certain properties, and you can do certain things with those types, and so on. So we have lists, which are very important, and they can have multiple data types. Let's say it has 1, and maybe it has hi there, a string, maybe 10.5, and maybe variable name2 also. Why not? And let's go ahead and print out that list object, my list one dot my list one. Control X, Y, and enter, execute, and this is what you get. So we got printed out all the items of the list, even 10.5 for the name2 variable. So don't confuse variables with objects, with constants, so to say. Hi is a constant, hello is a constant when you put them in quotes. So those are data types. A variable name is a variable name is a variable. It can hold multiple different objects inside. Okay, now maybe you're confused about why we have different data types. Well, let me open a Python interactive session. We have different types of objects of data in Python because that's a way to keep things organized. Like if you want to perform an additional operation between age and 1, Python will tell you that, oh, you're doing something wrong, be careful with that. I mean, you're trying to add the wrong type to your string. So you can actually add up strings H plus H would be HH, but you cannot add up a string with a number. Of course, if this was a text, a string, you get H1. So you need to explicitly tell Python what your intention is. So do you intend to use 1 as a number or as a string? Because it changes things like 1 plus 1 gives 11, which is a string. And sometimes you want to do that, to make the operation between two strings, which are numbers, but you want to treat them as a string, and the way to treat them as a string is by using these quotes. But if you want to treat them as numbers, you do this without quotes. You get 2. Now you should also know that all the data types, they have different methods attached to them. You can see a list of methods using dir function. So this will tell us what methods you can apply to string data types, or you can also do, any kind of string there. You'll get the same exact output. So this, I'll say, don't look at these methods with underscores because they are used internally by Python, and you're not going to use them. But these are methods that you can use. So for example, capitalize. What happens if you do hello, capitalize, and you need to use brackets there? Well, it didn't do anything, sorry, because this has to be a lowercase h. So if you pass a lowercase h in the string hello, it will capitalize the first letter. And so you'd say, what if I want to capitalize all the letters of string? Well, you have to look at the methods listed here. Maybe you'll find something that makes sense. So for example, upper, or maybe upper, you say hello, upper, and you get hello in capital letters, uppercase in other words. Now if you look at integers, methods for an integer, you'll see that they are different from strings actually. And actually it's only a few of them, because mostly you're going to use integers using operators such as that, or a minus operator such as that, you get a negative number, or you can use division like that. So basically what's happening here is that you're using shortcuts. Operators are like shortcuts of these methods in here. And so what else do you have? You have division 2 times, for instance, 10, you get 20. You can also do division, operations with floats as well. All the operators you use with integers, you can use them with floats too. And you have the power. So 2 in power of 3 is 8. 2 times 2 times 2. It gives 8. You can also use the division, the floor division operator, like, 4, and you get 2. And now, for more advanced math operations, Python doesn't have everything by default loaded. So you don't have a built-in function for a built-in operator for the square root, but it's very easy to import the math module, import math, and then you do math, that's square root of 9, and you get 3.0. So a math is like a built-in Python module that you can load in Python, but normally Python doesn't load it by default because it doesn't want to make your program heavy with lots of names of functions and objects. But if you want to load it, then you can do that. Alright, let me exit this session. Now I'm going to talk about user input. Let me open pro1.py, our program. So user input, until now all you have seen is just a useless program, like you write something in your program and then very statically you output what you wrote using a print statement. But what's the point of that? I mean, where is the user? You're not interacting with an user. You are the programmer. You're writing your strings and you're printing your own strings. But how about letting the user to actually send some output? For example, the user wants to submit their name and you want to print out their name dynamically, so depending on what they input. To get user input to create a prompt for the user, you need to use the input function. Input, like enter your name, maybe put some column there and a space to make it user friendly, the message. And now let me go ahead and execute this to see what you get. Enter your name, Ardit. And what happened is we got the list printed out. Well, why is that? Well, that's because all you did is you're assigning some values in your variables, and then you create a list variable as well, and then you ask the user for some input. The user enters that input, and that's it. I mean, you're not saving that input into a variable, and you are not processing that input. All you do is print your list, which is this one here, and that's what Python does. So what you want to do is assign a variable here, user name, maybe, if you like, and just pass the variable in there. Enter your name, Ardit, and you get Ardit printed out. But you can do better than that, like go to your print function and do something cool, like your name is. And then you use a string formatter here, or placeholder, in other words, which is %s. That's a special string that is going to be replaced by the value of the variable that comes after this percentage operator in here. So what's going to happen is that the print function will print out this string, and then if it finds this %s, it will look for the value after the percentage sign. So in this case, this is a variable, but you can also put a string here. But in this case, this will be replaced by the value of the variable. Let's test this. So your name is Ardit, and that's a cool program that you can make. That's about user input and making your script dynamic. But this is a very, very simple example. Later you're going to make programs, more advanced programs in real life, like let's say you ask the user to enter some coordinates of their position, and then you produce a web map showing their position on the web map. Yeah, that would be possible to do. And yeah, this is about the user input. Now let's talk about conditionals. Conditionals in Python. Well, conditionals. Let's say this is actually a username. Let's call this enter your username, or enter a username. Let's suppose that the user is you have a program where you are asking the user to enter a new username. They want to create a username, and then you have some rules, like you don't want the username to be less than 5 characters, and you want the program to decide whether to do something or something else. So whether to let's say print the string username valid or the string username is not valid. How to do that? Well, that is done using conditionals, and conditionals are used using if and else keywords. So let's say if the length, we use the len function to find out how many characters a string has. Len username, if it is greater or equal to 6 characters, so 6 would be a valid username with 6 characters, but even if it is greater than that, we'll accept it. And you need to use a colon here and enter, and here you need to use indentation, which basically is white space, and normally it's a good practice to use 4 white spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Indentation tells Python that the line you're going to write in here depends or is part of this block here, so of the conditional block. If the length of username is greater or equal to 6, then you want to print out the string username is fine, like that. Enter, else, a colon again, enter, 1, 2, 3, 4, print, it's not fine. And that's it. And let's leave the other print function there, it doesn't do any harm. Let me see what we get. Enter username. Let me enter a short username. So it says username is not fine, and we also got this other string here, your name is R. Let me try again, up arrow key, Ardit 1. Username is fine because this actually has 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6 characters. Now if you want to also have an upper limit here, like let's say 10 here. So what we're doing here is saying if the length of the username, so if this number here is less than 10 and greater than 6 or equal to 6, so if it is between 2 numbers, we say username is fine, else print username is not fine. So let's put a long number there, and you get username is not fine if you have a username with 7 digits, 7 characters, you get username is fine. So that's about conditionals. Now let's look at loops. A loop is used to perform an action multiple times. For example, what if you want to print out all the items of my list 1, each at one line? Well, you could do like print list 1, and you'd access the first item of the list, like that, print my list 1, 1 here. Let me explain what 0 and 1 means. You know, lists, they have a hidden index system. So the items of the list, each of the items has an index. The index starts from 0. So the first item will have an index of 0. The second item will have an index of 1. The third item an index of 2, 3, and so on. So this expression here will print out 1, and this other one will print out hi there. Let's test this. So look at the end, 1 and hi there. But, you know, this is not very efficient because I have to write this 4 times using all the indexes. But imagine if you had a list with 1,000 items, you know, in real life you're going to have lists, big lists. And normally what happens in real life is that, this time we type this down manually, but normally you're going to produce lists from databases. Let's say you have a database or an Excel file, and you're going to use some special functions that you're going to learn later, where you can create a list out of that column of the Excel file automatically, so you don't have to type all of the items of the Excel file into this syntax with square brackets. You'll create this automatically. Actually, this is I teach this in my Python mega course, built 10 real world applications. We work with a lot of data there. And anyway, now to print out all the items one by one in a very efficient way, you need to use loops. And the for loop is a very used and popular way, and very powerful to do that. So let's say for item, you can use any variable here. This is a variable for item in my list 1. What do you want to do to the item? Well, you want to print the item. Like that. And let's see what we get, and then I explain you the expression. You get 1, hi there, 10.5 and 10, all the items of the list. So how this works is the for loop, what it does is it will execute this action for all the items of the list. So it goes, in the first iteration, it goes to the first value, it stores that value into the item variable. So item at this point will be equal to 1. And so when you print the item variable, you get 1 printed out. And then it goes to the next iteration. So it looks if there is another item in the list, it prints that out. It looks for the other item, it prints that out. And then it looks for the last item, it prints it out. It goes again to the list. And if there are no more items, then the loop ends. And it goes to next lines of your programs if there are lines in your code. If there are not, the script will finish and you'll get the output. That's it. Of course, you can do more advanced things in here, like if type of the item is integer, you want to create product, maybe variable, which is item times 10, and then you want to print out that product. So try to visualize what we're going to get here. Else, or let me expand the conditional, if type of the item, sorry, this has to be an equal operator, not an assignment operator. With assignment operators, we assign values to a variable. With an equal operator, we compare a value to another value. I'll explain all this in a while, but let me write it first. If type item equals is equal to float print product equals to, if it's a float, what you want to do maybe is item times 100. Else print out it's probably a string. Let me execute this, see what we get. So what we got here is 10 for the first iteration. It's probably a string for the second iteration, so for the second item, then 100 for the next one. 10 is probably a string and 100. Let me explain why we got that. So what we're doing here is we go to the first iteration. So item will get a value of 1 in the first iteration. So forget about the loop. Think that item is actually 1. You can visualize it like type 1. Is it equal to integer? Well, if that is true, then we create a variable product and we multiply item times 10. And we print out the product, the value of the product, which in the first iteration will be 10. So 10 will be printed out, and I think it was printed out, as you see here. 10 was printed out in here. And if the if conditional is evaluated to true, then the other ones are ignored, they are not executed. And so what happens is that the loop goes to the next iteration. So it goes now, and item is equal to high there. And is type equal to int? So is an integer? No, it's a string, it's an str. So this will not be executed because this is not true. What happens is that the conditional goes to the next check. It checks if the type of high there is equal to float. No, it's not. So this will not be executed. And then we go to else, which means that if this was evaluated to false and this one also was evaluated to false, what remains is, else. Otherwise, if those are false, then do this here. So it prints out is probably a string, which you can see in here. It's probably a string. Then it goes to the next iteration. Now item is will be equal to 10.5. So is it an integer? No, it's not an integer. It is a float. Therefore, 10 times 100 is going to give us 1005, I think. Yeah, but we got 100 there. We didn't get 1005. We got 100 because we didn't print out anything here. So I forgot to include the print statement. Therefore, what happens is that the loop goes to the next item, which is name 2, corresponds with 10. So 10 is an integer. 10 times 10, it prints out 100. It didn't do anything for this case. So let me correct this. Print product and execute. So this time we got 10, it's probably a string, and 1050, sorry, 100, and yeah, that's it. I think this summarizes the for loop and the conditionals as well. Pay attention to the indentation. So we have nested conditional here, but think of it as independent. So if you had this starting from the very first character here, again you'd have the indentation no matter where it starts. So this indentation from here to here is of the if conditional. Then this one here from here to here is of the for loop, and so on. Alright, you have 2 more concepts to learn, and then you're going to have a very good foundation of the Python basics. You'll be ready to explore more about Python after that. Because these are the fundamental building blocks that you're going to use to build every type of Python program later. So we're going to talk about functions now in Python. Let me delete some of the lines here to make some space. I'll keep name 2 because I'm referring to it in this list. Yeah, that's it. And now functions. What is a function? A function is this print function here, which is designed by Python developers to get a string as input and to produce an output. So functions produce an output given some input. Now, Python also gives you the possibility to write your own functions, so your custom functions, and then you can use them in your script. So let's create a function that gets the age of the user and the current year, and then the function calculates the year when the user was born. As simple as that. So how to do that? That you can do using the def keyword, which means define a function which you need to give a name, birth year, like that. Then you open the brackets, round brackets, and then you use a colon. Now in these brackets go the parameters of the function. So what parameters will this function have? It will have the age and the current year. So those are like variables, but they are called parameters here. Then you need to indent 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so how can we calculate the year of birth having age and current year? Well, we can subtract, let's say, birth year equals to current year minus age. Let's keep it simple like that. And then crucial keyword of a function is the return statement. So that defines what the function will return. In this case, it will return the value of birth year. Now, once you have created your function, you can go ahead and call it. Because if you execute the script now, this will not output anything. Python will just record the function definition in the memory, but it will not call it because you haven't told them. You haven't told Python to call it. You have to tell them to call it. Birth year, like that. Let's say the age is 29 and year is 2018. Now, if you do this again, you'll not get any output because you're not printing anything. You're just calling the number. So this will be a number actually, because this is a number. So this will be a number. Actually, let me use another name for this variable, not to confuse you. Let me use like that, birth y, which stands for birth year. So this is another thing, and this is another thing. This is the name of the function. This is a local variable inside this function, and I have to reflect that in here. We create the variable here and we return it here, and here we call the function birth year, which will have a value of 29 for age and 2019 for current year. And you have to print that out. So that will print out the value of birth y variable. Exit, save the script. And yeah, here we go. The last output is a birth year. Cool. Now, of course, if you want, you can ask the user to dynamically enter their age and not simply passing the age to the function call. We have to modify this. So here is our input function, and let's change this to enter your age. Enter your age, and let's make the variable name more meaningful. User age. Now, user age, actually we also need another input function here, which is going to be current year equals to input enter current year, like that. So user age, current year, well, let me give it another name, not to confuse you. Current y, not to confuse you with the name of the parameter here. So that's another thing. Now what you do is birth year, instead of passing this statically like 29, you want to pass the user age value, which will be fetched by the input function, and also the current y current year as given by the user. We'll execute this. We'll get an error for now, but I'll explain you. But I'll explain you why you get that error. So it's better to see the error so that you understand it. Your age 29, 2018, and you get this name error. Name username is not defined, and that is in line 7. So this is pointing you. You need to read the entire error message. Don't panic. Just read it. It says error message happened in pro1.py file in line 7. This is line 7. Okay. It says username is not defined. Really? We haven't defined it? No, we haven't. Because we deleted the username variable, therefore we're getting this issue here. So let me create a dummy username variable here just to avoid that error. I think you get the idea. Now I'm going to execute this, but we're going to get another error. 29, 2018. Type error. So it's again pro1.py. In line 7, integer has no length. Yeah, that's because I assigned a number in username. Therefore, numbers don't have length, a len function. So let me put a string there. Execute again. We're going to get another error, which is good because it trains you to actually deal with errors. So the error happens in this file again. Originally at line 28, so print birth year, user age, that traces up to line 25. So Python wasn't able to execute this line because of this line. Because in this line, what's happening is that you're trying to perform minus operation between two strings. So string, current year is a string, age is a string. Why is that? Well, that's because an input function always produces a string data type. Even if the user enters 29, the input function will actually convert that to a string 29 with quotes. So what you want to do is you want to convert that into an integer or a float, if you like, and current year as well into an integer like that. Execute the script again. 29, 18, and for some reason we got the first age converted successfully to an integer, but not current year. Oh, why not? Let's see, 25. Oh, sorry. What I did here was nothing. I didn't use the int function. I just passed some brackets there. Yeah, that should be fine now. '29, 2018. And finally, 1989 is the output, which is good. So it is working. Great. Alright, now let's see how to interact with files from within Python. First, let me make some space here. Control Shift and 6 to mark the beginning of this block, and then the down arrow key to select the lines you want to delete, and then Control K to delete them. If you want to paste them back, then Control Y. So let me do this again. If you want to delete a block of text in your editor, in your Nano editor, press Ctrl, Shift and 6 at the same time in the beginning of the first line, and then the down arrow key to select all the lines like that, and then Ctrl K. That's it. And now let me go ahead and show you how to, for example, print out the content of a text file into the terminal via Python. So first we need to have a text file, and let me exit the editor. You can create a text file using Nano, for example, example.txt, and you can write something there, hello world, Ctrl X, Y and enter, and you see ls, that's the example.txt file is there. Or you can also do something else. If you want to upload external files, you'll need to go to the dashboard and then files, and then see where you are currently. You want to click here. So now you are in PyProject, and then you can upload a file, like let's say Spanish.json. Now if you go back to your dashboard, and you see that your console is still open, so just click it. Now if you do ls, you'll see that Spanish.json is there. So this is how you upload the file. Now let's go back to our script, and let's see how you can load the content of the example.txt file into Python. Somehow I didn't save the changes here, so this is not gone yet. Alright, let me go here. To open a file, you need to create a variable and store the file to that variable. So we're dealing with file object, just like we have strings, numbers, we can also have file objects. You can create file objects with the open function, and then you pass the path of your file, which in this case is example.txt. And you can pass the mode of opening the file. So read mode means that you're opening the file in read mode only, you're not planning to write anything into the file, just reading. Then what you want to do with the file, well, maybe store the content of the file in a variable. Let's say the variable contents, file.read and print content. That's what I want to do. And let's see if this will work out. Executing the script now. Alright, we got hello world printed out. So that's cool. Now, in addition to reading a file, you can also create a file with Python. The way to do that would be let's say file2 equals to open example2.txt. So there is no example2.txt in my folder. Python is going to create it. Let me delete some empty lines here to make some more room down here. Once you create a file object, you may want to write some content in that file. Let's say, hey there. Execute. And so nothing happened. Nothing new happened on the terminal because we are not printing any output. We're just creating a file, and but you can see now if there is such a file in there. So it is example2.txt. If you want to see the content of that file, you can open it with nano example2.txt. Yeah, the string is there. Hey there. That's how you create a file with Python. And something you should know is that once you create a file and finish with the operations with that file, then you need to close the file. That is a good practice because it frees up memory in the Python script while the script is executed. So once you're done with this file, why not closing it and release some memory so that Python goes to the next line and things happen faster. Yeah, you also need to close this file as well. File 2 once you're done with working with it, and that's it. Of course, the things will work the same now. So this is what I wanted to teach you in this long lecture about Python. And let me summarize what I taught you. You learned about variables, how to assign variables. You can use names, custom names in a variable. You can use underscores, and you can use numbers, but not numbers in the beginning of the variable name. After that, and then use assign operators to assign a value to the variable, which can be of different data types. It can be a list, an integer, a float, and other types of things, even input functions. So here is a variable. We're applying an input function which will create an object depending on what the user inputs. There are other functions. Then you have the int function, which converts a string into an integer if that string contains a number. If the string is, let's say, a string high, you'll get an error because you cannot convert string hi or hello to an integer. Okay. And then you learn about for loops, which allows you to apply an action multiple times. So in this case, the action is a bit complex. So it's all these actions here. So this will be applied multiple times until the list is consumed. So until the iteration goes to the very last item and there are no other items after that. That's what the loop does, but you can also simply put a print function here, like for item in my list 1, colon, print. Down here, print item, and that's it. So here we had conditionals, which are very important in decision making in your program because it makes your program intelligent. You have if, elif, and else. Then you have functions which makes your code very organized. You see that you could even do this without a function, like just use a print function that prints out the value of the age, the value of the current year minus age. But having functions will keep your code more organized. And so you can reuse that function with different values. Yep. Then we looked at files. You can interact with files from within Python, as you saw. And I showed you how to upload the file into Python Anywhere, how to write content into a file, and so on. So feel free to watch this video one more time if there are things that are unclear to you. The more times you watch a video, the more time you practice Python, the better you will become. It's all about practice. I think I gave you a good foundation of Python skills. If you want to learn more, you can look at the Python Mega course which I have produced. It's hosted on Udemy. The course is priced, but you can have a coupon code which you can find further down in the descriptions. The course will teach you how to create 10 complex applications, including websites, building websites with Python, and creating a motion detector program that detects motion and objects from the computer webcam. And then you have data processing, web scraping, etc, etc. Lots of programs there. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this and talk to you in next videos. See you.